Hello again. I'm gonna do this thing without the headphones this time because I don't really need them for this video. I'm making another review for the Jessica Jones episodes. I watched episodes 2 and 3, but I decided to do a separate review for each one because I felt it just seemed more appropriate. Now again, I'm not gonna do any editing on this thing. You're not gonna see any pictures on it. I'm probably going to do a big overall review of the entire season once I'm finished with it, and then I'm going to add some editing and some screenshots. So, without further ado, let's just spend a few minutes to talk about this new episode. I like this episode a little less than the previous episode, and it's not because I was wrong about the whole Simpson thing. I honestly thought Simpson didn't rehabilitated himself. Let's put it that way. I thought Simpson was still going to be a bad guy, and it turns out he wasn't. He was only stalking Trish because he was looking after her. But that's at the end of the episode. Let's talk about a little bit about the Carrie Ann Moss character, Jerry Hogarth. I could not care less about her storyline in this episode. She finds out, I don't know if they said it in this episode or in the next episode, so I'm just gonna treat this as a spoiler for next episode, but basically something's going down with her, and I do not care about it, at least not in this episode. I'll talk about it more on my next review, but she decides to have a night of cocaine and prostitutes, which, well, clearly I'm a man, so seeing half-naked women should turn me on, but, you know, I felt it was a little too much. I didn't really need to see Carrie Ann Moss taking her underwear off. Sorry, that's just me. What kind of man does that make me? I don't know. So, that whole storyline could just fade away as far as I'm concerned. Now, much more interesting storyline that I felt was introduced in this episode was Trish's backstory. Of course, she was a child star as Patsy, but she wanted to have a job in a movie, so she went up to this film director, Maximilian Tatum, who basically sexually abused her so she could get the part. Now, this kind of speaks to what's happening in Hollywood right now, because dozens and dozens of actresses are coming out and claiming, rightfully so, that they've been sexually abused in the past by other directors and other producers for certain jobs. And to me, I mean, personally, that disgusts me. I mean, that a person would use his or her position to, you know, take advantage of someone else and someone else's weakness just for their own personal gain is just, it's terrible. It's a terrible thing. It should not have ever happened in our society, and I'm glad that people are now taking notice of it, and it's at the forefront of our society, and I'm glad that it's being addressed on a show like this, because the show, from its inception, has always been around, it's always been a female-centric show, and it's about, you know, the struggles that women in our modern era have to face every day, you know, with just slime balls and rapists and men in power, and it's about time somebody addressed that stuff. I honestly don't want to get too much into this thing because I'm not a very good speaker for this stuff. I just talk about movies and comic books. I don't want to get too much involved with this whole situation that's been happening, but I'm glad that people are taking notice of this whole situation, and I hope this mentality of people, of, you know, just men taking advantage of women, I hope this whole thing stops as soon as possible, if possible. Of course, she drags Malcolm into it, and Malcolm, just like me, just is not a fan of people like that who do stuff like that to women, and rightfully so, because that's just beyond disgusting. So obviously he gives him a broken nose to that slimeball director, as he should. What else? Oh, there's a little thing that happened with the police in this episode, where the police came to investigate Jessica, and Jessica pointed them to the super Oscar, who I thought was a pretty decent human being in the first episode, showed his true colors in this episode, where he and also in the next episode, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But this guy, I really don't like him, and it's okay because you're supposed to not like him. He's being portrayed as a despicable human being. He's biased, and racist against superheroes. And again, just like with the whole sexual assault thing, I despise racists. That's just who I am. If there's anything I am racist about, it's racist. I cannot find any logical explanation for disliking a person just because he's different than you. That's just it. Now, of course, there's a little bit of grain of salt because he's racist against superpowered beings, because, super people can, one wrong word and they can just throw a bus at you. So I kind of get a little bit of where he's coming from, but still, racism is bad. Again and again, I don't want to get too deep into this matter. This is a subject for a completely different video, probably even a completely different channel. So if you want to hear me address the topic of racism in our society, the topic of sexual abusement, just forget that. I'm not going to talk about it. I already feel uncomfortable talking about it as it is. So this guy, I think, is a tremendous douchebag, and I really hope to see him get his comeuppance by the end of the show. What else? Oh yeah, Simpson's dead, by the way. Spoilers. I mean, you probably watched the episode unless you one of those people who just watch reviews to episodes you'd never watch, because I don't know what kind of a person does that. So again, I said in the last episode that there was going to be two major villains in this season. Simpson, who goes after Trish, and this meat face guy going after Jessica. Apparently I was wrong. As I mentioned, Simpson's dead now, and he was actually a very good guy. He was trying to look after Trish, and he suffered for it. Obviously got shot, and now he got killed for it. Of course, we've learned some new stuff about the procedures he was going through with Dr. Kozlov. He created a special inhaler for him for him to get his powers back without letting him go crazy, which is good because a guy like that needs his control. And apparently, Dr. Kozlov is dead now, so this whole project is going way out of hand. And when the guy who asks Jessica if she's a friend of Kozlov, and then she says she's a patient, sort of. When he says Tanchumai, I immediately, me being Hebrew-speaking Israeli, I instantly knew what that meant. Tanchumai means my condolences. And apparently, this guy had very close friends around the world, and was very well connected, because even a guy in a wheelchair without legs was willing to go up against a superpowered woman just to protect his legacy, which, now, how many people can say that about themselves? So, I'm interested to know more about this meat face guy. What's his story? Because if he wants to kill Jessica or Trish, like Simpson said, then he could have just done it then and there. So I'm thinking his real target was Simpson all along. Maybe he's trying to get rid of all of Dr. Kozlov's experiment because, well, he believes himself to be an abomination, and everything else that Dr. Kozlov did is also an abomination. I have a feeling we're probably going to see that guy in the wheelchair pretty soon, eventually. I have no way to back this up, of course, but we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. So, this is my review of episode 2, Freak Accident. By the way, I thought this meant Freak Accident, referring to Jessica's accident, but really, I believe it means the freak accident which killed Dr. Kozlov, which we have no idea what it is. I mean, was it a freak accident? Was it the same kind of accident that killed the wizard? Is this guy specifically targeting Dr. Kozlov and his experiments? Well, I believe it's a foregone conclusion why he hasn't killed Jessica yet is a question that should probably be answered in the next few episodes. So, thank you for watching this review. Share, like, subscribe, and leave a comment if you like. And make sure to check out my next review of episode 3. Goodbye for now.